I've randomly written songs ever since I was a kid, and here's a good one. I wrote it when I was 5 in Hong Kong, and me and my siblings would run around singing it. It goes, have you ever given creation to a tree? Have you ever given creation to a tree? To a tree. Have you ever given creation? Have you ever given creation? Have you ever given creation to a tree? To a tree. And then it continues like yes, I have given creation to a tree. It has a bunch of verses, and then at the end there's a key change up, and it goes, we will all give creation to a tree. And then there's a big shout, to a tree. We will all give, and there's all the harmonies. All give creation to a tree. We will all give creation. We will all give creation. We will all give creation to a tree.
Hello, Gina with Sidewalk Talk. I am with Crywolf today. We're on Segways. It's my first day, so if I fall. You grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh.
Raleigh. Raleigh. Tell me what it was like growing up there.
Well, we moved there when I was like 9.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty big change from living in Hong Kong before that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of like a traditional suburban southeastern Bible Belt kind of area. So super different from where I live now and the people that I'm around now. So the transition from me being in high school to now has been really drastic, for sure.
What were your parents doing at the time?
My dad was in real estate, and my mom was helping with that business, and my mom was also involved in a lot of nonprofit work, specifically with orphans in Africa and finding them families and supporting them.
Wow.
So grew up with pretty interesting parents, because before that, as I mentioned on the last episode, they were Bible smugglers. That's why we were living in Hong Kong. And so definitely like really interesting people. And we were homeschooled.
What do you mean Bibles?
Well,
what?
In China, Bibles were illegal at the time.
Right.
And Hong Kong was still a British colony. So it was really easy to get a visa to go to Hong Kong, but really difficult to get a visa to go to China. So they would live in Hong Kong, get the Bible shipped there, and then smuggle them. Like my mom had this like thing that made it look like she was pregnant, but it was actually like a bunch of Bibles in there, and they would like put them under my stroller and stuff like that.
What? So you were a part of this smuggling business and you didn't even know?
I could have just been a felon from age 2. We were like heavily involved in the church when I was younger, up until I left and sort of rebelled and ran away. We were, it's a very, very insular sort of church community. So that's why being exposed to, culture on the West Coast, I moved to New York, being exposed to that culture was such a shock for me, because I really grew up in sort of this religious bubble. Like I never was able to listen to secular music. I like only was really around these Christian friends. So yeah, definitely a big difference. But I actually really, so we were homeschooled in Hong Kong because the public school system was not very good there. And then when we moved to the US, we continued to homeschool until the middle of high school. So I spent a lot of time alone in the woods, just like exploring. And I feel like I developed this whole really rich inner life, which I think, now I'm really great. At the time it sucked because I wanted to like be a normal American kid. I wanted to like go to school and have all of these experiences that I had seen on like Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel in Hong Kong. I want to like have the American experience. But now I look back and I'm really happy that happened, because it made me really weird, which, you know, helps a lot when you become an artist. Like,
What type of music were you listening to
oh, I mean,
when you were growing up?
when I was really when we were in Hong Kong, we had like 3 CDs. One was the Beach Boys' Greatest Hits. One was Shania Twain, the one that had Don't Impress Me Much on it. And the other one was like a mix CD that some missionary that had come through Hong Kong gave to us, and it had like a techno remix of the Titanic theme song, and one of the Jock Jams songs, the one that's like Pump It Up. So that was really all we had there. And we just played a lot of music. And then in the US I got exposed to like the most embarrassing music, just like Christian versions of pop music. And
Did you know you like wanted to be an artist?
well, I actually always wanted to be a vocalist, but I just had a terrible voice. Like in high school I wanted to be one so bad, but everyone I would sing for would be like, you suck, essentially.
No.
But the thing is, like, I used to be like, oh yeah, I'm proving them wrong, I can't believe they said I sucked. And now I realize like I really did suck. So I mean, I just like, my voice had not developed at all at the time. I really had no idea where my voice sounded good and where it sounded bad. Like I was always trying to like belt like crazy. Like I heard Linkin Park for the first time, and I like wanted to be Chester Bennington so bad, like just belting all the time. But my voice sounds like shit when I do that, so I had to slowly come into that. But I was always experimenting a lot with film, so I thought I wanted to be a filmmaker, and then I got into economics in school. But just on the side started producing music in Ableton just for fun, and it ended up sort of catching on, and we started like touring all the time, and then I had to drop out of school, and it just sort of organically happened from there. It really just started as a hobby for me.
Who introduced you to Ableton?
To Ableton? I don't know. Actually at first I was producing in GarageBand, because that was the only thing I had heard of.
Right.
And then I think just looking on online forums, like back then, if you wanted to learn how to make a sound or like what plugins to use, you had to look on the Gear Sluts forums and just find somebody who's mentioned something about some synth. First time I learned how to just use an LFO, like just make a wow 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 sound on a bass. I was just like, I fucking did it! Like I was so excited about it. And now, you know, there's so much crazy sound design, but at the time bass music was just a lot of like wow 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 wow.
Right, true. Were your parents supportive of your music career when you decided you wanted to do music?
Oh, definitely. That's like one of the things that I'm really thankful for about the way that I grew up. My parents definitely raised us in a way where we thought we could do pretty much anything. Like they never told us, oh no, that's not realistic, you can't do that, you can't do that.
That's amazing. They were never worried.
No. Even when we were homeschooled, it was like when I first expressed an interest in film, my mom changed the curriculum to have a ton of film stuff in it. So then it became my classes. I was studying a bunch of film, and like,
wow, your mom seems
let's
amazing.
go get you an internship at this film company. And yeah, they were always like, just their main things were like facilitating curiosity and trying to make sure that we didn't have any feelings of like, oh no, that's not realistic, we can't do that. It was always, you could do anything. So yeah, that's one thing I'm so thankful for, because a bunch of my friends, you know, had such a hard time with their parents accepting their music
seriously
career, you know?
Yeah, really. And that's really good to hear that your mom was so supportive about you know, everything like that. What would you say your biggest struggle would be
With music?
Yeah, with music, or just in general?
For the last couple of years, like the last 2 to 3 years, I've been going through this sort of like quarter life crisis. Because for all of my 20s, I was working so hard on Crywolf. Like it was my full-time.
Right.
I would wake up, start working until I went to sleep pretty much for like 5 years. I just had the mentality that if I wanted to excel in the field, I needed to be willing to work harder than other people were willing to work. So,
Right.
and that worked out really well for me, but it also created a situation where I never even had time to think about like my developing identity. And so after I started touring a ton, playing festivals a ton, while still making albums, while still making music videos and visuals and everything, it was like, it just sort of came to a head at some point where I just got super burnt out. And I just had all these questions like, who am I actually? Like, my entire identity is Crywolf. Like, I don't even know who I am separate from that. So I sort of took a step back, and my biggest struggle for the last couple of years has been just answering that question of who I am, just reading like crazy and just seeking a lot. Now my biggest struggle, I think as a musician in general for the last 6 or 7 years, my biggest struggle has been the fact that the music industry is shifting towards really focusing on singles, which does not work for me because I like making concept albums. And a lot of times they don't work as singles at all.
I've never heard of that. Wow.
Yeah, like I was always obsessed with albums. I was always obsessed with like an album that you could listen all the way through and it was this cohesive story.
Like a story.
Yeah.
And that's not really, not that it's not accepted, but I guess when did you notice that shift?
In the music industry? I think it was pretty much there from when I started making music. I mean, the concept album thing was something that was never really the best thing to do if you want to maximize your social media growth or your social reach. Right. But that was just what I really wanted to do. Like, I've never been able to make music that I don't really want to make, which is why I haven't done that many collaborations or writing for other people. It's like, it's not that I don't want to, it's that if I do that, my creative brain turns off and doesn't allow me to. It's like everything I make is shit if I try to make something I don't want to. So it's like, gotta make concept albums, gotta make this weird crossover music between electronic stuff and the stuff that I really like. So that's been the biggest struggle. Throughout all of Crywolf's existence, it's been really hard for people to know where to place the project. Should I be playing the electronic festivals? Oh, it's a little bit too like soft and emotional, and I'm playing ballads sometimes on just the piano during the show. Oh, should he play the indie festivals? Well, there are really heavy electronic elements in his set, so that doesn't really fit. And then similarly online, it's like when it comes to related artists that you can collaborate with or have sort of this like their fans coming over and listening to you, it's like pretty hard to place. Originally I was making pretty heavy bass music, and there's still that stuff on my Spotify, and now I'm making stuff that has almost no bass in it. It's like totally organic stuff, but all my related artists are still bass music things. So I'll have some track that's only me and a guitar, and it will pop up on like the Seven Lions melodic bass station, and people are like, what the fuck is this?
So how many instruments can you play?
I can play like probably 15 instruments, but that's not like, that sounds impressive, but it's not really. It's more like, I just have an underlying understanding of music in general, and so therefore I can sort of play most things, but I don't play anything super well. There's nothing that I could like sit down and really impress somebody on. It's more like, I just know I'm just like kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none.
What was your first instrument?
I played the guitar first.
Guitar first. Yeah. Who introduced that to you?
When we were young, my parents played a good bit of music and actually had me and my 3 siblings sing a lot. We would always be singing these like 3-part and 4-part harmonies.
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah, because
your
they
household
had,
sounds so much fun to grow up with.
Yeah, it was good. The older, and at first when I was younger, I was sort of like so rebellious against my family, like, it made me grow up in this Christian world, grow up so sheltered, fuck this. And now my mentality is so different. I see all the amazing ways that my family facilitated who I am now and all the strengths that I have now.
That's amazing.
Even with the music thing, yeah, we were singing from a very early age. My dad would write songs for us to sing, like based on our interests. And
are you kidding?
yeah. Him and my mom both played guitar. And,
wow.
so I started taking lessons when I was like I only took lessons for like 6 months.
Do you think that was like one of the first moments you really like fell in love with music, singing with your family? Like
yeah, I mean, I've always been like super in love with music. It's always been the art form that I connect to the most, but I just never really thought I could, because it didn't seem like I was that great at playing it. It didn't seem like I was very good at singing, and so to me, even though my parents didn't tell me it was unrealistic, I always thought it was unrealistic. So that's why I wanted to do something related, like film. And then later I was double majoring in economics and international relations, studying like sustainable development in third world countries. So I sort of got into that area, like, you know, serving the world, and it seemed like making art was sort of a more selfish life path.
Really?
Though I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, I think music really, yeah. When did you realize that it wasn't?
Well, I had like generally a lot of experience in the kind of nonprofit sector. Actually, right after graduating high school, I moved to Sudan and was working with some schools there and some relief efforts there. And when I came back and went to school, started making music, and people started really connecting with it and liking it. A couple years later, like, I played one of my first shows, and people came up to me. This was after I had released like 2 EPs, and people were coming up to me just like, "Oh my God, your music has, you know, helped me so much. It's done this and this and this for me. I was in such a crazy depression. I was, you know, getting chemo, and this was the thing that brought me through it. I was suicidal," stuff like that. And it just clicked for me that through actually just diving into myself and expressing my own humanity, it was actually helping way more people than I ever did with this stuff that I felt like was specifically about helping people. It was sort of this weird paradoxical thing for me. Like, doing this selfish action actually ended up helping way more people than I could just going out and trying to, you know, hand out food to people in third world countries or something like that. So it's been really nice for me because I get to fulfill both sides of myself, the part that wants to help the world and also the part that wants to like discover who I am through art.
Beginning of your Crywolf project, when did you kind of really dive in and, you know, you're like, this is what I want to do?
Well, there were 2 phases to the Crywolf project.
Yes.
The first was Cry Space Wolf, and that was just more about making like really fucking punk metal versions of electronic songs. I had a drummer, there were always pits when we would play, and that was just a result of me sort of being like, realizing that I had been decently good at most things throughout my life, but I had never really worked on any particular skill. I had never like truly put my mind to it. So when music production came up, I was like, what if I just like really set aside time to try this, to do it, and to see how good I can get at it just for a year. And so that turned out well. We were just traveling around the Southeast, you know, for us just playing any show was like, wow, we get to play a show, this is sick. You know, we were all like on food stands and like eating peanut butter and jelly for every meal and just like so excited to just tour like that. And then I decided to go a different direction, and it became Crywolf, one word. And I went in a totally different direction, like this melodic, emotional, vocal-centric stuff. Yeah. And that was really when I decided that it was something I wanted to do long-term, because I saw the results of that. I actually started making stuff that I really felt, whereas before that it was more just about having fun.
You came up with Crywolf growing up in like a Cherokee, Native American, like that's how, like you had a friend that, right? Or is this wrong? Oh no, okay.
No, I mean it is wrong, but it's not your fault that it's wrong. Okay, I have a confession to make. Back when Crywolf back like a couple of years into Crywolf, I started doing interviews a lot, and one of the main questions was always, where did the name Crywolf come from? And I didn't really like talking about my music in general, much less like, I don't know, the origins of certain things. So anyway, me and my manager had this really funny relationship, and we devised this game where every time I was asked what the name Crywolf meant, I had to, on the spot, come up with a story.
Are you
about where it
kidding
came
me?
from.
So that's a false story?
Okay, listen.
Because, that's why I got confused when you're like, oh, I was in Hong Kong, and I'm like, wait.
No, Hong Kong's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was like...
Everything we've been talking about.
Because everything I've been reading, or, like the things I read, and I'm like, wait, it's like not... It's not connected.
No. Okay, to be fair, I was not doing it. It was more of a long-term joke that I was going to reveal to everybody.
Oh, okay.
And when I was telling these things, I was not making it believable. I said that my friend in the Cherokee Nation died of the Black Plague. Like,
wait, I didn't read that part.
Always like unrealistic. I always added things to make
goodness.
sure that anyone that was paying attention
I was
would be
doing
like,
my
oh,
research, and I guess I did incorrect research, you guys.
No. It was in an interview. Another interview, it was like, I got kidnapped by the Yakuza, and I was held in this little cell for 5 days, and the only guy that was feeding me had a tattoo of a wolf with a tear.
You've been trolling all these interviewers, and they don't know it?
I was doing it in a way that I felt like they would be like, oh, yeah, right.
Wait, did they believe you though? Or were they
did.
like, oh my gosh.
But anyone reading the interviews would be like, wait, these stories are different. Oh,
No,
you must
but-
be doing a bit. I get it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, that's been revealed. I guess. Okay, are you gonna tell
We
us?
thought it was really funny back in the day. Now I feel bad about it.
I mean, it's hilarious. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you, and it can't be the wrong answer or a made up one. How did you come up with Crywolf?
Well, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was in this traveling circus, and I had a really weird job. I was specifically just feeding the wolves, and then during the act,
you were
I would
feeding
actually
actual
yeah, I would
wolves?
throw meat to them. So I would sit in the middle of the ring during the show, and they would loose all of these wolves in the ring, and then the guy who controlled the wolves, kind of like the same as a lion tamer. He had to run to the center as fast as possible and defend me, and it was like, oh, quick, save him. I'm just fucking with you.
I'm done. I'm gonna turn in the segue. I was believing you. I'm so gullible, so this is not like a fun thing for me.
Okay, no, I'll tell you. I actually had the
Wait,
Black Plague
is this
when I
a
was
real
younger.
story? Justin.
I grew up
Tell me.
with actually wolf ears on my
Oh my god, I'm
tail.
done with this interview. We're good.
No, I'll tell you the real story.
Okay.
The real story is that when I was younger and thought, oh, maybe I'll have a band someday, I had a bunch of names written down, and Crywolf was one of them. And, I mean, it's sort of evolved to mean a number of different things, like sort of this idea of the persona that we present to the world versus our true selves. But the origin was really quite lackluster, which is why we came up with the game.
Wow.
I just always thought it was cool.
What's the best memory that you've had in your Crywolf project so far?
Oh man,
The
so
best
many, but
memory.
I would say that the absolute best, as far as like my emotions, would be the time that I played Electric Forest. At the beginning of Crywolf, like this whole concept album, crossover, singer-songwriter, electronic thing, especially for the first like 3 or 4 years of Crywolf, was not a thing. Like, it was not a thing that anybody wanted to sign on, agents or managers. They were just like, what is this? I don't know what to do with it. So for the first half of Crywolf, I was still like never able to make rent. I was like, couldn't buy food for the most part. It was just like such a struggle, but I just kept working really hard. So there's this sort of like background of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and just like really crossing my fingers that all this work will pay off behind it.
And now here you are.
Yeah, and so when my dream for a long time was just to have a supporting act role on a full tour. So when the Crywolf project finally, at one point the Crywolf project finally just like, there was some sort of switch that was flipped and it just caught on, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like my entire like life changed really quickly. As far as, I mean, I had been used to just like nothing, and then suddenly we were touring, and then a couple years later we were playing festivals, and I was doing all this work on the visual element for the show and all these different aspects of the show. So the biggest festival that I played was Electric Forest, and there were like 9,000 to 10,000 people. Somehow I had gotten this stage slot that I do not think I deserved. It was like 9 p.m. Friday on the Sherwood Forest
What do you
stage,
mean
which
you
is one
don't
of the biggest
deserve?
ones. No, like my agent pulled some strings, because like compared to the other people that were playing at that time, I was not nearly as big. But I got to play in front of like 9,000 people.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
I had created this whole live set myself. And so it was just this feeling of like all my work paying off, like everything that all this work that I had put in. It was just so satisfying to have it finally like validated in some way. Just like, I mean, and I wish, you know, there have been a bunch of other moments, like as far as other people go, like knowing that I've influenced other people in a lot of ways. But if I'm really honest, I would say that was the best moment, just because my whole life I've been just working towards that exact thing. And when it came, it was just like, because I mean, now looking back,
like
it's like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, now looking back, it's like, of course
I
that
feel
happened.
like.
But at the time, it's like, what if I do all this work and pour my life into this, and then it just never happens? It was so terrifying to me.
So what's the best piece of advice you can give to someone that's just starting off?
I would say, and I talk about this at my shows sometimes, I would say just like really don't underestimate the viability of making exactly what you want to make. Like a lot of people, I think, see the music industry and legitimately they feel like they need to fall into a certain lane in order to succeed. And that used to be super true in the old school music industry. You had to. But now the world is so vast. People find things through the internet that are so strange. Like think about all the weird corners of the internet. Things that you would never, like all the subreddits that are huge that you're like, who would think of this? Like why would people be interested? You know, like when I first heard about ASMR, there are millions and millions of views on these videos of someone crinkling.
Mukbang.
What's that?
You never heard of mukbangs with people with like a crap ton of food and they're just eating all of it?
Yeah. So things like that, like you don't realize, because I mean, you grow up in a particular area, you're exposed to a certain type of music, you think that you know the world of music, when in reality you've only been exposed to like a tiny slice of it. And so you think, oh, if I made this sort of music, people wouldn't accept it. But in reality, there are 7 billion people on the planet, and you've only ever been exposed to like 15,000 of them, you know?
Right.
So you don't realize that no matter what you make, if it's coming from a really, really true place, there are people that connect to that. Like with my music, you know, I have to expose it to, you know, 100 people for one of those people to really like it. So you just do the work to just continue making stuff that's really true to you, and you expose it to as many people as possible, and then you trust that that one person, because they're encountering something that's really rare, that they're like, oh my god, I connect to this a bunch, that they're going to be sharing it with a lot of people, that they're going to be like, oh, my friends who like this too, I got to tell them about this. So anyway, I just feel like you have to be way more okay with creating stuff that's true to you, because the truer it is to you, the more it's really going to mean something to people, the more that you're actually going to be able to like really affect people's lives and change people's lives. I think that's one of the most underestimated things in music, or one of the most common misconceptions, is that you have to do stuff that other people are doing. It takes a lot longer if you're doing something that you really want to do, but then when it happens, you get fans that they like you for exactly what you are. Like I have a bunch of friends who
I'm really glad I asked this question.
I mean, it's something I'm really passionate about, and like wanting to tell to younger artists a lot.
Wow.
Like, I have friends that when I was first sort of making more bass music, I had different like, you know, people that were making the same sort of stuff, and then trap music came out, and they like transitioned over to trap, and so they like quickly blew up because trap music was blowing up. But then they wanted to start making stuff that was more personal to them, and their fans just left because they weren't necessarily liking them, they were liking trap music.
Right.
So they're going to them for a particular like service, essentially. And if they're not providing that service, people aren't interested.
Right.
Whereas if you're really doing something true to you that's different, then the people that come to you, they'll stay with you through all kinds of experimentation. Like, they're long-term fans because they're fans of like your essence versus just the kind of service that you provide.
Right. What do you want to be remembered for?
What do I want to be remembered for? I mean, in my earlier 20s, I think that was more just, I really wanted to be remembered for creating masterful works of art. And I still do. Like, being an artist is still a huge part of my identity. But I also now want to be remembered for, I guess, just being somebody who's really good at loving the people around me, but loving them in my particular way, which is sort of like helping people grow and facilitating that growth. I mean, I know it sounds sort of cheesy, but like...
No, I love your... It seems so like real, you know, like your answers.
Yeah, when I was younger, it was all about creating the masterful works of art, and I was like, who cares about really the people around me? Like, my priority is creating these things that I, you know, working towards this mastery. And if people, you know, if people have to fall by the wayside, then that's completely fine. And now I've just realized that yes, you'll be remembered for the art that you create, but you're also really deeply remembered for how you treat people on a regular basis, not just with my friends, but also with my fans, just making sure that I'm trying to facilitate like really deep, heartfelt connections with people that leave them feeling like they've been changed in some sort of way, or that they've been like, you know, that they've received a certain type of love that they that means a lot to them, I guess.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for doing this interview. This is Crywolf. We're gonna jump into fan questions now. How has COVID affected you?
I'm extremely, extremely grateful in this situation because out of most people I know, I'm in like the best situation for something like this to happen. Like, my income does not primarily come from touring. So there are a lot of artist friends of mine that because they can't tour, it's like a really big deal. And pretty much my lifestyle is sitting inside and making music. So it's like, it hasn't really changed. It's like, oh, I have to sit inside and make music more. And I'm just so grateful for that because I know so many people, and of course tons of people that I don't know, that have been insanely affected by this. Like, people with a storefront, you know, people that their entire business relies on people being able to come to that business. Like, I can't even imagine something that you've worked for so long, your livelihood potentially completely going under because of this pandemic. It's like really heartbreaking to me.
I don't like jumping into the next question because it's like totally off topic, but
No, it's fine.
What's your favorite plugin?
I would say, well, my most used plugin would be Decapitator by Soundtoys. If you don't use saturation plugins, which Decapitator is technically a distortion plugin, but it can be used for saturation. If you don't use saturation plugins, it makes everything in your mix way thicker and way more satisfying. So definitely get on that. I also use a lot of cool contact libraries. I've really liked Output's stuff recently. Their analog strings and their substance pack, they're just incredible at making sounds. They're so inspiring, especially for writing.
Whoa, sorry. I need to get used to this. What is the biggest lesson you've learned in this industry?
Do what you want. Never make concessions, even if everyone around you is making it seem like you should. And always include some sort of exit clause in any contract that you sign. Do not fall into the trap that many of my friends and myself have fallen into, where you sign some sort of contract, getting sold on something that somebody's gonna do for you, and then there's no stipulation for them actually following through on that. If they don't follow through, you're still stuck in the contract for 3 years or even perpetuity sometimes. Like, I'm currently stuck in a contract in perpetuity for my old catalog that prevents it from being used on Twitch. It makes YouTube videos get taken down. And it came with all these promises, promising the world. But because I didn't include some sort of exit clause, there's nothing that I can do if they don't follow through. So now all my contracts, there's always something that's like, if you don't deliver this, then I'm free to get out of this contract.
Wow.
Because when you're coming up, you're like, just the opportunity is like, oh my God, I got to jump on this. But now later in my career, I'm like, why did I do that?
Wow,
God.
that's a really good point. Wow. Do you ever feel like your music gives people the wrong idea of what you're trying to project with it? That's a deep question.
The wrong idea. I mean, I don't really think about that much. I think, recently I've shifted over to music that explores much more dark archetypes, and if people have a lot of repression in that area, then they might not enjoy that. Or if people see the world in this really black and white, like only happy emotions are valuable and you shouldn't explore any of the darker ones, then they might be turned off by that. And actually, yeah, I'm sure that it gives people a different impression. Because, for instance, like my last album, Widow, it was super dark. And like I said, if people see the universe through this sort of moralistic viewpoint, then they think, yeah, that they interpret that darkness as evil, which is a moral judgment, versus interpreting it as just another thing on the entire range of what makes people human. But I've just never been that worried about that sort of thing, because I would way rather make music that's super true to me, and then all the fans that I get to meet are people that I feel like have known me for 10 years because they know these really intimate parts of me, versus thinking, oh, people won't understand this, people won't understand this, and then making music that isn't really the fullness of myself. To me, it's way more worth it to have a smaller fan base that goes really deep with you than having a gigantic fan base that is, doesn't really understand the fullness of what you're doing.
A line of lyrics that means a lot to you.
Let's go to the next one. I'll think about that one.
Okay.
I have to...
Let's do 3 more questions. Will there be any new songs this year?
Yes. Finally.
Finally.
How
many?
Yeah, I've been working on the new album, and so that will at least start releasing this year. I'm currently finishing that up. So I have been on a little bit of a hiatus, even though I've released a couple things each year. But this year, yeah, I'm diving back into everything and like making the Crywolf project more of my full-time thing. Whereas I was sort of taking some time off to do this masterclass and write a book and do some other stuff that doesn't have to do with music. But yeah, now it's time to dive back in, and this is kind of the year that there'll be a lot more new stuff.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Ooh, this is a good one. What advice would you give your younger self?
Never enter a contract without a reversion clause. Oh man.
That's really good advice.
Spend a little more time like trying to understand who you are, or I would myself in my early 20s, I would say just read a lot more books, because I stopped reading for like 5 years, and now reading is probably the thing that I would say is like one of the most important things in my life as far as my overall joy and self-understanding and lack of constant existential crises.
Oh, this car is going really fast. Oh, can we go? Because it's a stoplight. Okay, this is actually kind of funny. If I'm to name one of my frogs after one of your songs, what should it be?
Let's see.
One of my frogs.
I would say beauty is not a need, she is an ecstasy. And you could just call her Ecstasy for short, or Butte, or you could call her Need if you want.
Can we get a picture of this frog?
Yeah.
By
Send
the
me
way?
a picture of the frog.
Okay.
I love frogs.
Last question. A line of lyrics that means a lot to you.
Oh shit. Okay, let me just think about this for a second.
A line of lyrics that means a lot to you.
I would say probably there are a lot of lines from my song Rising Rising that are super meaningful to me, because when I wrote that song I wasn't completely sure who I was writing it about, and a couple years ago I was singing it on stage, and it was at a pretty emotional time in my life, and while I was singing it, it just suddenly clicked that I had actually written it to like my child self. And so the song goes, lift up your eyes, child, lift up your arms, you are home. I know you're hurt, child, but you can't do this on your own. And the line that really means a lot to me is, and I can see your blood flow, I can feel your hurt now, did you think I'd let you be alone? I can hear your sorrow singing through the airways, I can tell your breath flows with my own. And also, I guess the next line says, and I will find you somehow, let me be the salt in your wounds, clean you from the inside. Yeah, those lines like really mean a lot to me. Every time I sing them, I feel like I'm having them sung too.
I have like
really
goosebumps. I feel like, wow, you're so good with lyrics. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. It's always been my dream to be good with lyrics.
Yeah.
I was so bad at it when I was younger.
What's like a really bad lyric? Side question.
Yo.
Like, give me like a lyric to a song.
Too many. When I've been writing, I've randomly written songs ever since I was a kid, and here's a good one. I wrote it when I was 5 in Hong Kong, and me and my siblings would run around singing it. It goes, have you ever given creation to a tree? Have you ever given creation to a tree? To a tree. Have you ever given creation? Have you ever given creation? Have you ever given creation to a tree? To a tree. And then it continues like yes, I have given creation to a tree. It has a bunch of verses, and then at the end there's a key change up, and it goes, we will all give creation to a tree. And then there's a big shout, to a tree. We will all give, and there's all the harmonies. All give creation to a tree. We will all give creation. We will all give creation. We will all give creation to a tree.
Wow, well that that was a perfect ending to this interview. I'm gonna say, who would have thought that was gonna go in that direction? Yeah, guys, thank you for the fan questions.
Yeah, thanks,
we're
guys.
gonna end it at this. Thank you. Bye.